Hey peeps, it's Julian here from Tutoring, and as always, it's such a pleasure to join you. We're on 3.2 of the 2017 Maths Paper Lit, Paper 2. This question deals with measurements, calculating the area of a rectangle and the perimeter of a rectangle. So they've told us to have a look at Annexure E, which shows us the floor plan of a rectangular room that Lizette wants to add to her property. The room will have a roof, a ceiling with cornices. There's some other information. The exterior measurements of the room is 5,240 millimeters by 4,040 millimeters. The walls have a uniform thickness of 220 millimeters. The ceiling boards only cover the internal area of the ceiling for the room. The cornices, which are decorative edges, will be placed between the wall and the ceiling, right around the ceiling in the room. And it shows it more clearly in Annexure E. They've also given us a couple of formulas that we may need to use. So going to Annexure E, as they've described, there's the floor plan of a rectangular room showing the exterior measurements. So as said, the length of the room is 5,240 millimeters, and the width of the room is 4,040 millimeters. They've also given us this thickness, and they said that this thickness is 220 millimeters. So we'll need to keep this in mind when doing our calculations. They've also given us a diagram of what the cornices look like. So it's the wall, cornices, ceiling. So going back to question 3.2.1, asking us to calculate in meters squared the floor area of the room. So on to 3.2.1. So we first need to calculate what the actual length is, because remember, this length is the exterior of the room. So from here to here is 5,240, but remember there's this thickness that was mentioned of the walls. So we need to minus the 220 millimeters from this side and from this side. So technically we are only measuring from here to here, and we need to minus 2 of these 220 millimeters. So going over here, we've got our length is actually equal to 5,240 millimeters minus, as I said, 2 times the 220 millimeters. So that's the thickness of the wall. And this comes to, in your calculators, 4,800 millimeters. And now they do want us, as I said, to be calculating everything in meters. So I like to just do the conversion right now. So it will be your length in meters will equal 4,800 divided by 1,000, because to convert from millimeters to meters you divide by 1,000. So this equals, you can do this in your calculator, but it's 4,8 meters. Okay. And now we need to do our width. So width will equal the same process. So it's again 4,040 millimeters minus 2 times 220 millimeters, and this equals, in your calculators, 3,600 millimeters. And then as I said, we need, so in meters then, it equals 3,600 millimeters divided by 1,000 to get to meters. This is going to equal 3,6 meters. So then, therefore, using the formula that they've given us for the area of a rectangle, which is length times breadth, we have area equals length times breadth, which will equal those two values that we've calculated, 4,8 meters multiplied by 3,6 meters, which comes to a floor plan area of 17,28 meters squared. Okay, so I don't have, I've just run out of space there a little bit, so just to repeat, that equals 17,28 meters squared. It's important to get your units correct. Okay, on to 3.2.2. So on this question now says the dimensions of each ceiling board she intends using is 900 millimeters by 2,400 millimeters. Determine, and remember to show all calculations, whether a minimum of 7 ceiling boards would be needed for the room. So what we'll need to do is calculate what the surface area of these boards are. So first of all, I just want to convert these dimensions into meters because we're working in meters. So the 900 millimeters divided by 1,000 will equal 0,9 meters, and 2,400 millimeters divided by 1,000 equals, in your calculators, 2.4 meters. So those are your dimensions of the ceiling boards. So therefore, the area of the boards is equal to, so it's length times breadth. We're using that same formula that they've given us. So it will be 2,4 meters multiplied by 0,9 meters, which equals, in your calculators, 2,16 meters squared. So one ceiling panel is 2,16 meters squared. So now we need to calculate number of boards needed. So your number of boards will equal your total area divided by the area of the boards, of one board. So we have these two values. So this, of course, equals our total area, which we calculated in the previous question, is 17,28 divided by 2,16, and this is going to come to exactly 8 boards needed. So to answer the question, therefore, she indeed needs more than 7 boards. boards. So she does need a minimum of 7 boards. So you get all your marks for saying this. Before I move on to the next 2 questions, I'm just going to clear the space to make room for answering questions 2.2.3 and 2.2.4. Okay, so on to that question 3.2.3. They've said now calculate in millimeters the exact length of the cornices needed for this room. So remember, we need to use the length and breadth of the interior lengths. So we have just erased those. But if you remember, we calculated, so this length was 5,240, but we had to subtract the 220 from the thickness of the left side, minusing the 220 from the thickness of the right side. So if you remember correctly, we had that the length was calculated to be 4,800, and the same thing we did for the width. So we had to minus the 2 thicknesses, and we got that it was 3,600. So now for the cornices, we know that we'll need 1 cornice for this length, we'll need another cornice for this length, we need another cornice for this, and another cornice for that. And so this is known as the perimeter, and they've given us the formula for perimeter over here, which is 2 times the length plus your width. So you simply use this formula by saying that the length of cornices equals 2 times your length plus the width. But remember, we need to use those interior lengths and widths. So this will equal 2 times the 4,800 millimeters plus the 3,600 millimeters. So we put this in our calculator and you get a final answer of 16,800 millimeters. And they've asked us to leave our answer in millimeters. So that is the answer. On to 3.2.4. So they've given us table 5, which shows the price list of materials that could be used. They've given us the ceiling boards price. So for the 900 millimeters, this 4 millimeters is the thickness, so we don't have to take that into account. It's the width is basically 900 millimeters, and then the length in millimeters is 2,400. They've also given us one for the 3,000, but remember the ceiling boards that we calculated in this question was 900 by 2,400. So this is the measurements we're going to use. So we'll use this price over here for our ceiling boards. And if you remember, we calculated that she's going to need 8 ceiling boards. So we know that it's going to be 8 times this price. And then also the decorative moldings, they've highlighted here that cornices for a length of 2,000 millimeters is going to equal 53 Rand and 64 cents. So first off, we need to calculate how many cornices we need. So the number of cornices is going to equal this number that we calculated in the previous question. So we know that the total length is 16,800. So we need to divide it by what one standard length is, which they said is 2,000 millimeters. So the total length divided by the length of 1, which would equal in your calculators 4,8 cornices. But now when you're in the shops, you can't buy a 0,4 of a length for the decorative moldings because you need to buy the whole cornice. So therefore we need to round up in this situation. So rounding up, it comes to 9 lengths are required. And of course we can't round down, because if we round down to 8, we're actually going to be short of the number of cornices we need. So that's why in this particular case we just have to round up. So therefore our total cost will equal, as I said, remember we need 8 times the ceiling boards. So 8 times the ceiling boards plus 9 times the cornices. So this is going to equal 8 times, we said the ceiling boards is 91.44 rands from this table, plus 9 times, and the price for a length is 53.64. So putting this all in your calculator, you get a grand total of 1,214 rand, 28 cents. And the question asks us, would it be less than 1,250? So therefore the statement is correct. Before I go, I just want to give a special shout out to our epic sponsor for making this video possible. Read all about them in the description below. Be sure to visit our website for more of these epic tutorial videos. If you can't find the answer to your question, remember you can always send us your question and we'll respond with a personalized video just for you. And until next time, stay epic.